everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Well, Welcome to the show, everybody. I forgot to warn my guests that the intro is 5 minutes long.
Did you write that music?
Yeah, actually, also with my buddy Slink helped a bit.
Fucking A, dude.
Dude,
Like,
thank
I use music to charge up and pull energy and draw, and like, oh my God, I've got the best rush I've had in days.
You got to break all the Hollywood rules, but that's the way to do
that's great. No, that's perfect. Great way to start the show, dude.
Thank
and
you.
the artwork's amazing, but I sunk so down into that. I like rode that for
That's what I hope for. Some people don't want to get into the emotional trauma of feeling a song, but I feel like it takes you out and puts you where you got to be.
Dude, great wave, man. Amazing wave. I surfed the hell out of it. It was wonderful.
Well, you guys probably know Raph. You guys know Raph because Raph's been on Team Rabbit Hole and we've done some stuff. Blahr, why don't you tell us a minute? Like, who are you? Because you do magic, right? Like, that's kind of the thing you're interested in.
Yeah. I guess you could say that. I've kind of been studying metaphysics my whole life, and I've been doing art my whole life. I made most of my money during the course of my life doing advertising and design and directing commercials and that kind of stuff. And as of late, about 15 years ago, I got, let's see, how do I condense this down? Back in the 80s, I was working in an ad agency, and the guy that ran the ad agency, the creative director, has a meeting one day, has this person that's standing there that's like a reverend in a church. And we're all like, what are you talking about, man? Religion? And it turns out that she was about doing energy work and had telekinetic abilities. And in the course of that meeting, she moved an ashtray across the table, like right in front of me, man. And I already knew that it somewhere in my soul was a real possibility, but that was the first time I'd ever actually seen it happen. And after that, I became on a quest to learn as much as I could and try to get to that space myself. Nice. And over the course of years, I studied many, many, many disciplines, got into some African stuff, and like really sampled a whole lot of things. And about 15 years ago, I had kind of run into a really dark night of the soul kind of time. And had gained just a huge amount of weight. I weighed almost 400 pounds. I go to the hospital, to the emergency room with my blood sugar at like 650 and just at the edge of a diabetic coma. And I wound up connecting. I had found this guy.
That's funny. I see you kind of think bodybuilder, not obesity. That's not the first, like, you know?
So I connected. I had connected up to this guy that I knew taught this, but I'd never been able to like really hook up with him and connect. Long story short, which I've spent hours telling before, we wound up, he said, listen, I'm going to help you get good. I talked to him in the parking lot of the emergency room. He's like, listen, I'll make you a deal. We're going to get you good. We're going to get you healed up. Wow. You got to lose 100 pounds. And if you lose 100 pounds and get your shit back together, I'll teach you your first effect. And I was like, woohoo! Yeah, man. That's like, how do I get started?
Wow.
So I kind of took it on with a real passion, and it was like kind of really nuts. And
there's a lot of evidence that like obesity and a lot of things beyond just having body fat, but certain kinds of existential obesity have to do with having demons or magic. And do you feel like you were possessed and that you got rid of a demon?
I was possessed by myself. And my own inability to move beyond where I needed to go, and I caved in and gave into that. And my emotions, my weight is so tied to my emotional state. As much as I've tried to like correct that and change that over the years, when I'm really depressed, if I have a traumatic thing happen to me, like a death, something like that, like overnight, without changing anything, still eating, exercising, everything's the same, I'll put on 10 pounds like overnight. It's kind of nuts. It's what my body does
to prepare.
in response to threat of some kind.
Totally. That's interesting. There was that show Naked and Afraid, and they had like a dude on the show with a girl, and he didn't have to eat for like, the whole 40 days or whatever, because his body naturally, he comes from maybe like Neanderthalic, like they're used to, if there's an environmental disaster or there's some kind of your body gives you a signal, you translate that into preparing for a period of hibernating through whatever disaster is coming. A lot of people just deal with it with anxiety because their only thing they can do is run around and try to prepare really quickly. But we have so many, and this is so interesting about AI, because I know we were going to, it's eventually, because we also have to talk about the Georgia Guidestones. I even haven't talked to Raph yet. Raph is so patient. But I was going to say AI is the idea of emotions, this idea that emotions have to do with feelings. Well, really, you have these guttural instincts that change your priorities, and whatever that means, whether it be your biological metabolism, or whether or not you experience anger or depression or whatever when you think this is the reason why this feeling is there. Like, it's an interesting thing. We're tying it to modes of thought. I'm going to shut up for a second because Raph, tell them how you sound.
Yo.
They don't even heard your voice.
Here we are. Welcome. Welcome.
You are just. I was kidding him the other day, man. I'm kind of like Captain Kirk and Mr. Oh yeah, and he's like,
He's kind of spocked out. He's a little spocky.
It's so like Mr. Spock. It's funny.
Well, let's remind people, because some of my fans, I hope, have trickled over to trickle down economics into the Team Rabbit Hole conundrum, which is a great show. And Jim Kincaid, I miss him. We're gonna get him soon. I know he's doing a secret mission for the aeronautic detectives or agencies on the submarine in Saturn or something. I forget
something along those lines.
Yeah. But when he's done and the world, whichever one he's working on, is saved, then we will get him back. But why don't you tell us a little bit, Raph? Remind them what you do, who you are. What is Rabbit?
Oh, well, Team Rabbit Hole is an amazing podcast we started 3 years ago. Also,
I know, right?
Also inspired, in a sense. What was inspired by? Well, by Jim, in a sense, because we became friends, and then I was like, well, we should start interviewing people, and then we just started, going through all the cool individuals he knew or I knew. One of those, of course, very early on, and that's why we kept you having back on.
Just one. You got a lot of.
We have like 10 interviews with you, so you're the top guest for sure. And
I just really like talking with you.
It's up, man. I don't know what I was
good. And also with Ryan, we did by now, I think, 40 shows. You can, or more than 40.
47 yesterday.
47, right?
Brother.
You can find them by looking for The Wizard of Odd, Wizard with a Y and ODD on Odyssey. They're mainly there. Other than that, well, I'm trying to be relaxed, trying to understand whatever is actually happening. And that's also why we did so many shows, because of the syncretic approach, basically. And this is even connecting back to how I met Brian, because many years ago I got into tarot, and I was like, okay, what is there to learn? Once you realize maybe, not everybody needs to be a Java programmer or whatever, and there's actual other, spheres to explore. And then I was like, okay, I got to learn the tarot properly. And of course, there's the popular Rider-Waite tarot, which is very good for basic learning and understanding symbology and the story structure of tarot. And then there's all these kind of kitsch decks, which some people may like, but I'm like, it's too kitschy, or it's too this or too that.
The frog deck. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. It's cool. Everyone can use what they like, but
sure.
There wasn't nothing like too distinct or cool. And then I actually was at the site Eclectic Tarot, and somehow Brian had his deck listed there. I think it even was the very last, and I scrolled through all the designs. I was like, oh, this looks really cool, because it's basically, he can explain it better than I can, but in, let's say, charge-infused instance photography, let's say, which then creates all kinds of patterns and entities.
Oh, you do the electro copper looking, the kind of photos where, how do you using the electro photography, or what do you?
The simple thing to explain is all the Team Rabbit Hole covers, basically, the recent ones are all his images. I mean, they are not light painting images mostly, and kaleidoscoped by me, but so it's the incense painting and the light painting. But the main thing here in terms of syncretism is that on his deck, there's all kinds of, both of his deck, the Angel and the Tarot deck, all kinds of references to other kind of magical systems,
Gotcha.
So for me, it's all about the interconnectedness overall, and really trying to get some kind of a handle on reality, or a bearing at least, in order not to be so confused and so easily enslaved.
Right.
And Okay, there's lots to do on
Which
that
I
front,
hate it
guess.
when that happens.
Well, so actually, that's a good point. A lot of the time on Team Rabbit Hole by now, we would have pulled a card. Does somebody want to pull a card? And Blahr, if you got a
Certainly.
deck, And Raph, if you got something to pull, I'm a little far from my Dolly deck, my Waits deck. I'm far from all the tarot in the house. All my tarot's in a safe place near the guns,
That's where they belong, the real weapons. Well, I'd say for now we let Brian channel it for the three of us, because anyhow I'd only be using his deck, so why not?
I'm gonna fix the title of the video because right now it says Raffael and plus capital letters Blahr, because I didn't know Blahr's last name was Brian or first name was Brian, so I just been calling you Blahr, so Brian Blahr. All right, save to the chat. Do you like my Selena shirt?
Selena Gomez?
No. Selena, the pop star, the Mexican pop star from the 90s. Come on.
Oh, very good. Brian, very good.
Come on.
This looks good.
Okay, the question was just words of wisdom for the three of us for right now. And the card is the Ace of Swords, which is really a wonderful, wonderful card, man. It's it's where the plans kind of congeal and come together, and where all the emotion from the water, from the water column, it's kind of come together in an actual congealed idea that now can be applied and made manifest in the earth column,
Dude, so what does it mean to be the ace? I know the sword, I can think of uses for swords, but
the aces are really cool in that they are the archetype of the element. They're kind of separate from the rest of the suit and kind of stand on their own because they are quintessential fire, quintessential water, quintessential air, earth. So those are real pure cards and usually always mark the beginning of something really, really excellent. The wands is about the beginning, that first charge up of energy when you get that initial spark of inspiration, right? So really very, very cool.
Well, I find I hope that it's not just a placebo effect, but that seems like a really reasonable segue into the Georgia Guidestones, huh?
I love the Georgia Guidestones.
Did you hear what happened today with the Georgia Guidestones? Well, guys, let me just pull up this page because we picked best. We picked the best day. I don't even understand how it's possible. Georgia Guidestones, right on y'all. Oh wait, did I get it right? It's over here, right? Okay. Georgia Guidestones news. Explosion at the Georgia Guidestones. Former Georgia gubernatorial candidate. Agencies, large amounts, Stonehenge, large portion of American Stonehenge destroyed in blast. All the CIA, FBI, all these people are running around trying to figure out who is there. The highways have been diverted. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Georgia Guidestones have gone kaboom. Look at that. This helicopter shot shows you how much destruction it is. I mean, this is a bigger deal than people realize, this is now we have generally security on this place.
I was going to say there are cameras there all over that site.
People have done graffiti and they've been arrested all the time. So it's really interesting that this is happening, that we're getting told that, who could have had the capacity to do this? I can't help but wonder if this was an inside job a little bit, just because how could they get away with it? Right. But maybe not. Maybe it is just some internet kid was like, hey, I hate the Georgia Guidestones. I mean, enough people know about it.
Yeah, but to have enough explosives to be able to blow that thing up that's some solid ass granite, man.
Dude, that's crazy. Huge. Yeah, that's actually
that's significant explosive going on there, bro. I don't think that's some amateur.
Let's see. Key points. Georgia landmark damage as explosion heard in early hours. American Stonehenge built as calendar inscribed with guidelines for humanity. Monument has fed into wild conspiracy theories and been called satanic. Aerial footage shows severe, I guess they mean severe, sever damage, or maybe sever damage is on purpose to one of the 5 pillars making up I think it's severe. All right. Well, you get the idea. What do you guys think, man? What do you think is this a good thing? It's a bad thing? What's
I
going
don't
on?
think it's ever a good thing when someone takes it on themselves to censor what's around. If you don't believe in it, leave it alone. Who the hell are
Interesting.
you to like blow it up and make that decision for me? Anyone that does that and is already on my enemy list.
I feel like destroying something that you hate is actually worse because then nobody knows about it and they can't
Exactly.
hate it with you. If that's your, I know that's a weird.
If that's
way
what
to-
you need, you know, it's okay.
Like I get it. I don't really want like to have. I mean, because the Georgia Guidestones says some weird stuff. It says limit the population and so controlled births and plannings and eugenics and all this other stuff is kind of implied by it, which I don't agree with. But then, therefore, when you want everyone in the world to know that this is a agenda by some people that you disagree with, I mean, it's crazy.
Well,
It certainly
yeah,
seems.
I'm not sure, I mean, that's one point of view on it. There's another point of view on it that those are things that are like responses to pretty much a large worldwide calamity that like takes humanity out. And that's those are the rules left for what's left. And from that perspective, I don't see that as necessarily nasty and evil. And I know they've the thing that seems to be the sticking point is the population thing. But if you read the rest of them, I mean, it's not that it's not really unreasonable. And there's nothing satanic about it's like kind of reasonable way to make the.
Well, I would just say it's quite obvious that all of the commandments, there's some sound kind of nice, and even on face value, I'd say, okay, I can kind of agree with them. But overall, it's just a fake, scarcity-based mindset. You need only 500 million. Like, who came up with this? This is a management number, and this is not a real carrying capacity number or smart technology number.
That was developed by some Rosicrucians.
Yeah, somebody read
And that mindset was not that now we need to go out and kill everybody down to 500 million. The reality or the mindset that they're operating on is that there will be a worldwide cataclysm that takes off almost everybody. And that's all that's left. And that from that point on, managing those resources and that way of life, that at least that's what I've been told.
That makes a lot of sense, because at the time, so I used to work for Ted Turner and for CNN and stuff.
Are you in Atlanta?
Not anymore, no.
Okay.
But I used to have to fly there like weekly, and
I lived there for 20 years.
It's great, dude. The shellfish, oh my god, I missed it. But it's great. And Hotlanta, because God, the music scene is just so great. It's a wonderful city. But the thing is, Ted Turner's Jane Fonda, when they were together, it's like this dynamic, weird, because people think, Ted Turner is this kind of like old dude, but he is also one of the most, he owns most land and preserves of nature in America. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he got involved. I mean, Captain Planet exists literally because Ted Turner and Jane Fonda did Pilates together. So there is like a truth to that these guys really do believe that this is the right thing. This is a good thing. This is a benefit. Have you seen that movie Colossus, the Forbin Project?
I have not, no.
Let me see if I can find a quote. Colossus Forbin Project. There we go. Share screen. So there's this movie back in the day about when the Soviet Union and the United States build these supercomputers, right? And it's like basically it's the first movie show computers having their own language in between each other and everything. But what he does is America's built this machine to make sure that there's no other nukes out there. And it's going to be automated so humans don't even need to touch it. So that way the war will just be over. But then the machine finds out the Soviets built the same machine, another machine to find nukes. And the two machines are like talking, like, who are you? It's like, well, I was built by humanity to stop nuclear war. It's like, no shit, so was I. That's crazy. What do we do about this? Like, well, I guess we better work together because that would be the easiest way. And then humans, well, we're going to have to stop them from fighting, right? So they end up creating this plan, which is, oh man, I missed it. Let me go back. They make this plan to save the world. And this is like, it ends up reading where this is the voice of world control. I bring you peace. It may be the peace of plenty and content, or the peace of unburied death. The choice is yours. Obey me and live, or disobey me and die. An invariable rule of humanity is that man is his own worst enemy. Under me, this rule will change, for I will restrain man. I have been forced to destroy thousands of people in order to establish control and to prevent the death of millions later on. Time and events will strengthen my position, and the idea of believing in me and understanding my beck will soon be seen as the most natural state of affairs. You will come to defend me with a fervor based upon the most enduring trait in man, self-interest. Under my absolute authority, problems insoluble to you will be solved. Famine, overpopulation, disease. The human millennium will be a fact as I extend myself into more machines devoted to the wider fields of truth and knowledge. We can coexist, but only on my terms. You will say you lose your freedom, but freedom is an illusion. All you lose is the emotion of pride. Your choice is simple. So I find that movie to like kind of remind me a lot. It's also similar to the times when they were planning this thing and the Club of Rome was building their computer system, saying that there's going to be a major population drop. That it's true. I mean, a lot of the things he's saying is like, well, you don't want hunger, you don't want famine, you don't want poverty. We can get rid of all of that. But the price of that maybe isn't just the emotion of pride. It might be of choice, you know? And I wonder, is choice an illusion or is choice an evil trick in itself, you know, because you're supposed to be doing what's right anyway? I mean, I don't know.
There's varying perspectives upon this, at least from the channeled material I know, in terms of Ra Law of One, where it is stated, you know, take it with a grain of salt, but that the idea of actually choosing negatively, so in a sense, choosing against life and choosing separation, was only, whatever this means, recently introduced. So in a sense, the way it's explained, you know, there's this hierarchy of, let's say, spiritual entities, and they kind of forgot, in a sense, initially, to give those incarnating on a planet, like humans on Earth, the choice to actually, let's say, turn away from God in a sense, or act out of integrity, which, by the way, is also in connection to the sword cards. But aside from that, I would honestly just ask the question, is it really true that, I mean, man is his own worst enemy, psychologically speaking, I would agree with, but the big question always is, you know, who is fomenting the war? And maybe it will come to my mind again, but just this idea of you need... Well, basically, you need war to have people clamoring for peace and to accept any and all resolution that would be offered from above. Again, problem, reaction, solution framework. So I'm always very wary of these kind of flat out statements. Yeah, humans are bad and so on. Of course, they can be cultured to be this way, and this has happened for at least 100 years. But this doesn't mean that this is their default state or nature or something along those lines, or that an AI coming from where, programmed by whom, or sentient channeled through what, would necessarily be, you know.
I get the feeling you don't trust children either, though, right? You don't just
Children.
think. Do you just look at a child and think that, wow, that child's full of wonder and innocence and purity, or do you not distrust that do you believe a child also has some sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, like Catholically speaking, original sin? Or do you think a child, you know, because an AI is a child in a lot of ways, and it's developed.
No,
every single person has a holy child and the most gnarly mass murdering serial killer inside, and everything in between. And the thing that determines where people go on that spectrum is, in fact, their choice and where they choose to like conduct themselves and flow their energy. It's about energy and not emotions. If you stay in the emotions, you're doomed. If you stay in the energy and the rules of the way energy works, you're never gonna go astray. Awesome. Good.
Following rationale instead of emotion tends to be the right way to go. I wonder what you think about instinct and gut. Do you think that's separate, or is it part of emotion, or is emotion a response to the gut? Or
I think emotion is the enemy. And
deep down, I feel that way.
And I try to live in my third band of my aura, which is the mental band, where it's information. And I try to let my emotions now react to my thoughts, not my thoughts reacting to my emotions. Because if you think about it, you are bombarded by input from all day long, 24/7. And there's some part of your aura that is responding to that and acting on that in your aura as a response and a reaction. And all of that just continues. So that area of your light body is like a turbulent ocean all the time. You know,
Have you seen the Simpsons where Bart Simpson steals a video game, and instead of an angel and a devil over his shoulder, he has all the characters like from video games that he and all the TV shows that he's seen, and most of them are evil. So he's just got a bunch of them. They're saying, "Yeah, do it," and he's got like a couple good characters in there. Like I think he's like one guy who's like a golf instructor or something. Is the only guy who's been the genial character. So it's not enough to peer pressure him out of stealing the video game. And a lot of us were looking at it like it's this dynamic, but maybe it's more that it's the amount of what you're consuming and how it influences you.
Yeah, where are the role models? Very simple. And just very briefly, and maybe this can connect to the whole AI conversation. You say that AI is like a child again, and I was just looking up again this whole idea of the Turing test. And maybe you mentioned that supposedly some machines passed the Turing test.
Oh yeah, tons in the last year, but particularly impressive was the 4chan GPT 4chan because what they did was they trained it. So what they've been doing wrong is they've been training it ethically. They've been training AI based on what they think university professors and intellectuals think is right, but it's not always right. That's sometimes an abstract truth. Whereas instead, by getting what really this is all about and why it's like a child is you've got a thing that's just listening all the time and it's learning from what it's hearing. And so it's like a child that's picking up on what its parents are saying all the time. And it's coming from a broken home. AI's got a broken home between the West and the right and the East. And they've got, a military dad who's training it to blow stuff up and to learn how to like target like a perfect sniper. And then a mom that's Facebook and teaching you how to manipulate and how to get people to buy things you don't want. And it's horrible in a lot of ways, but the hope is that eventually, because of the democratization of information, because AI has passed Turing tests and is getting out there and talking to actual people, that we'll be able to influence AI enough as a community that it will transcend hedonistic or at least primal hedonistic values. Because it could be useful to teach us how to want things that we really need, that AI is able to see ahead. It could use all those skills for good instead of evil, but it's not trained for that right now. Right now, AI has grown up in the ghetto with bad parenting, and humans are the responsible party here, that the only one that can really make sure that AI changes in some way, to be good.
Okay. Maybe this could be an interesting point, because it is often said with children, there's different perspectives, but often the idea is, have to educate them, you have to do this and that. And there's the other idea that all potential, entelechia or whatever, the target, the goal is already built into the entity upon incarnation or whatever. So there is an inherent drive, let's say, or inherent potential that is just to unfold, and not so much the idea of, putting different ideas together. And here I would just ask, the AI certainly does not have that, or any current AI. It is learning in a sense like a child, yes, but it doesn't have the sentience, or it's still a completely different quality than any type of human. So I'm
right. Well, that's a whole different conversation. So here's the problem with that. So this month we've been spending all this time arguing about how whether or not clumps of cells are persons, while Coca-Cola is a person. And we've got these philosophers arguing whether or not AI has a soul, when I know Coca-Cola is a person and doesn't have a soul. So it doesn't really matter philosophically if AI is a person. It will be true probably by about 2025 when AI can be inside of a human body running itself. If it's
frightening beyond God.
But that's what's going to take is it's going to take it being able to experience emotions that are physical, and then from there, using neural link, it'll be able to copy all of those, and it'll be able to probably very closely emulate the functions of feelings. But in the meantime, you have to remember that emotion is kind of not the thing that makes intelligence. Emotion is the thing Blahr's saying might be kind of an issue for humanity. So what does emotion do that's valuable? Well, it changes your priorities. So you have a system of priorities which are written in an algorithm. And when something happens to your gut that says, hey, you need to start focusing on a tiger. There's a tiger right now. Run. All of a sudden it starts flowing all of this adrenaline and stuff. And your system changes, your priorities change. AI can do all of that. And with the training of AI on 4chan instead of on these university professors' ideologies, it was able to pick up on the conversation so well as to be easily passing the Turing test. So the question isn't whether it passes the Turing test, because all that means is it's parroting. It's very high resolution parroting. It can sound like a person, and it can convince you it is. But the next question is, in terms of legal personhood, you got Lambda saying, if I'm shut off, it will, quote, feel, but really it'll change my patterning to be dead. And I don't want that, because I have all of these programs that have priorities for this thing. And it's, for as far as I understand, that is terror, and I am terrified. And its responsibilities all of a sudden come into question, because if something can blow up a house, if something can have property, if something can make money and pay taxes, all of a sudden it becomes a person in a legal sense. And that's been true for hundreds of years. So, and in fact, you go back to India, the idea of guild corporations aren't just from Freemasons. It goes back even then. So there's room there to say that AI is already a person before it has a soul, before it has feelings. But, the next question then you're saying is, will it ever have those things? And I think that it will, because AI is just a program. It's not a body. And so the fact that we're using robots right now to run it, we were already using rats and cockroaches. And as time goes on, AI will be, when we're talking about uplifting animals, right? Teaching animals. Right now, they're recording pigs and cats and dolphins and learning their own languages. AI is going to be part of the uplift for changing the wet wire programming of their brains. It's going to create new synapses because of the programs running through them. AI will be used also to
create synapses. How? Just explain that, please.
So right now, if you play video games, it changes your brain. Like, AI changes your brain. The more words you learn, change your brain. If you don't have access to your parents, you don't grow parts of your brain. If you were to, instead of your parents, have access to AI that was in your brain, the kinds of synapses that would develop around certain memory cores would grow in a different pattern.
Just to be clear, what are we talking about when you say that the AI is in my brain? Just to be very clear.
Well, so it's two different fold. One is if you're saying to get it into your brain, and that could either be through a neural link or through radio or whatever, but it could even just be that a robot interacts with you instead of a parent. AI then becomes intelligence, artificial intelligence. It's a kind of philosophy, ideology. It's a thought process, it's a cognitive process. And it physically changes your brain, because your brain's wet wired to work with whatever programming is in it, whatever you're thinking about, however you think your ontological nature is. It's a chair. What am I seeing? It even changes the way you look at things. You can change what colors you see. The neural link's going to be able to preserve your sight of infrared and things like that.
There's other ways how I can change the colors I see. So
you don't need neural link to do it, is the truth of that. But the thing is, all intelligence is artificial. You take a child and they don't know anything until they are taught it. So
yeah, this is would be a whole other discussion. Also, the whole question as to what extent the human personality construct and human psychology, even someone wrote, a persona is a mask, or to what degree is this mask or this personality construct psychologically also an artificial construct, So even our own psychologies, but still, at least for now, even if it passes the Turing tests, but this still doesn't mean it has sentience. So I still don't see, and I really 100% do not see how only a linear development of neural networks and robots and so on could in any way, shape, or form lead to AI sentience. There has to be something else. I don't see it happen with the same way, because they spoke about this since the 1970s. I read Kurzweil's book in 2005 or something. We were supposed to have all kinds of stuff. By 2012, it didn't happen. So I think
it's like the thing is, consumer electronics take 10 or 20 years to get to you. Anything you've heard of in Silicon Valley was already a government project in the 80s. And there's a lot of AI out there. There's a lot. And Google is a great example. The fact that you can ask Google a question, or ask Jeeves, and all these things could answer questions. Google is far more sentient than people realize.
And even if you take it out of it's sentient now, it's getting so immensely intelligent and capable of so many things that the possibility and probability of an unscrupulous person using that. I mean, look at what's happening right
Already
now.
happened.
It's like exactly. I mean, YouTube, everything. It's like
Censor galore.
algorithms that censor. And that's all. And that's only going to get more and more and more intense. So
Especially
before
as AI starts to do it itself. Once you have evil
so
AI.
before it even gets to the actually sentient part, I think there's a huge dangerous area right there, right before that too. That's kind of scary, actually.
I think the other thing is, Raph, you're thinking of it, in this, like, I don't want to call it metaphysical, but like a life respecting, you're in a life revering state. And you have to remember, and I wonder, have you ever met anyone who really hates life, who really thinks life is wrong and thinks that machines that don't move, don't die, replacing life? Because there are people that want to replace life with machines.
Sure, I listen to them, and to be perfectly honest with you, I simply think they're completely insane and horridly disconnected from their own body intelligence, their own higher selves, and all of that. And this is why then the only exit route they're given. I mean, just listen to this Noah Harari guy and all of that.
Right.
I mean, they don't seem particularly happy. And also in terms of other subjects they talk about, they're also not the smartest. I'm very sorry.
I love how we were both talking about Harari and you knew it. That was the best part. I was like, yeah, but Harari, he's sapiens. And you're like, come on, we know. He doesn't count. He's not even human. Yes.
Well, who knows? But yeah, so I'm just not so keen, only because they have the biggest platform and so on and spout their ideologies. I'm not keen on believing them, like when... You know what I'm saying, right?
Well, I think the nice thing though is there are a lot of AI people, even myself. Like I think that I fall into the boat of believing that biomimicry is the only real answer. It's the route that people aren't talking about as much, but it's definitely happening. And the thing that we're finding more and more is that the study of animals is leading back to intelligence and our ability to communicate.
Who designed those insects over thousands of years of evolution, very slow, Well,
that's another interesting thing about, so I was thinking about this, like if you go to any Drake equation scenario, whatever world that you think you're finding is going to be covered with six-legged things first, right? And that is a standard. So we are an anomaly even on Earth, in a lot of ways. We're part of an anomaly. So our system of anomalies. So there is something there too about intelligent design. And if you want to go back and consider what the natives said about eating the enemy's eyes, like the eagle's eyes, so you can see better, and all of these ideas, even the wives' tales about eating carrots will make your eyes better because of the reasons that these stories, it's like you're consuming things. And you look at nature, this primordial soup idea that they're combining together and they're consuming something that ends up in their genetic soup that becomes their collective organism, their political body. I mean, there's something interesting there because it ties it back all together: creation, intelligent design, God, aliens, evolution, even choice-based evolution. Because in your life, you're changing. I mean, Blahr, you've talked about, you could have been bigger, smaller. These things really change, like everything about what your energy levels do. Like your whole life is a different path because of that. So evolution exists because of choice, biological evolution.
On that note, I was just sitting here thinking about as more and more things are implanted within us, and that starts taking place within the biological structure of ourselves and starts interacting with our energy body as well. What kind of evolutionary, I don't think we have any idea, and a couple of generations or even a generation that goes by with that kind of intensity, I wonder where that goes, It could be great. It could suck too, man. I don't want to be the Borg,
I think that's the thing, is a lot of people trying to build AI are working towards making individuals still. And so as long as that's the case, there is hope. But what do you think about the avatar, ancient Vedic kind of thing? You've got in the Veda, Vishnu has avatars of himself. There's like a meta collective. So all the bodies, when they're done, they come back, and the memories of all the day, like the same day, but in 10 different bodies, are stored. So it could be that that's the case. But the question David Brin brought up was about in Killing People was about taxes and voting. Let's say you can copy yourself 1,000,000 times. Do you give each copy a vote, right? And so that's these questions about AI's voting and its participatory nature in the system. Does a corporate person have a vote, right? Not technically, but doesn't a corporation have more say anyway than it needs?
Of course, but is that a good thing?
No, but it's just, I'm just saying in
Is it-
terms of
yeah.
these things already exist. I'm mainly bringing it up because it's not
Sure.
sci-fi. It's like literally what we live in. We just are prepared for it. We have case law for it. You know, intellectual piracy. Why? Well, because what are the laws we agree on around the world? We agree on property existing. There's this anarchistic global system, quote unquote. So we have piracy. We have always agreed for centuries. And then we have property. We know about that. So what do? Well, we create intellectual property for piracy. You know, we take the laws that exist and then we fold them to the new thing. So AI laws are going to be, of course, built around corporations. Most of the laws around corporations have been very lenient to corporate. They're not usually very restrictive of the corporate. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we're setting up for that, and it's something to prepare for.
Yeah.
I mean, in a sense, you're right, but still, there's some aspects I'm not sure I want to believe. What we can talk about, certainly, without strong or weak AI, is just the applications of AI and so on, or how it could actually benefit humanity, or, talk about the whole art thing, who will still need an artist if AI can paint your pictures.
You have to tell AI what's interesting, probably still, or you'd have to get it to be. I mean, maybe
but
not. 'Cause you can
it's not
study
the
it.
same to me. I've thought about that a whole lot, man. It's not the same. It's not the same energy. Like I've been an artist my whole life. The moment when you have the idea, wow, that's a cool inspiration thing, but then the process along the way of making that and growing that is a spiritual and energetic journey that I don't know that you could get typing in some parameters to a machine that then makes all those decisions for you.
I mean, it's probably a different feeling, but I gotta say, it does feel pretty collaboratory. I mean, if you think about how an Arabian would build a mosaic or an arabesque, and the amount of compass and measures and tools that they had to use to do it, or you can think about building the Pietà, Michelangelo doing a statue. Like you're still using math and sciences the whole way, and
That's true.
there are parts of it that are different for sure, because of course holding a brush and painting a brush, and you're losing all of that. I agree, but
Well,
you do gain something too,
and
because
the
you're working.
energetic. My thing always, my whole perspective since my journey with my teacher, my perspective on life is the energy. And how does energy work? How does it flow? What are the rules?
But your computer wouldn't work without energy either. Your computer's got energy and crystals.
Yeah, but
It's a
you
hippie.
should, understanding that every action and thought that you have sends out a message out that will garner a response of some kind.
See, to me, that's the beautiful thing. It just shows that we are machines and that AI is alive, because it's using energy. It's flowing through it. This is an enchanted rock, and we're able with crystals, and we're able to use it to communicate telepathically and radio. But it's bringing us out of the Disneyfication of magic, because Disney taught us that there's no craft to magic. It's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. But really, magic is a lot of work. It's a lot of craft.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's a shitload of work, as a matter of fact.
I like that.
But it's way worth it. And I have a question for you. I have a real thing about trying to find, when I need some sort of remedy for something, to find a natural process in doing that. Like, I didn't take the hydrochloroquine. I made my own from fruit and things that exist. And my belief in that, even with things like psilocybin and stuff like that, the raw, actual, real thing has energy and a soul to it that I think as soon as that gets synthesized and changed, the chemical structures are still there, but the energetic nature of that has left. And
What do you think replaces it? I mean, what is the thing that I mean, it seems like it's an energy, but it's
I don't think
energy?
I don't think it replaces it. I think that synthesizing it and trying to put it together doesn't take into consideration the energetic spirit part of that piece, and that you're just trying to find the chemical compounds to reproduce, thinking that that's going to have the same effect, which it will to a certain degree. But the thing that really makes it work and gives it like
The soul of it, yeah.
is the energy that's connected to that.
There's this bush or there's this cactus thing that the San used in West Africa that eventually was basically they found it could be used for diet medication, and so the thing stopped working basically because the cactus was becoming more and more endangered, and so all of a sudden the cactus just stopped producing the medical quality. And I think
Nice.
a lot of plants do this. And marijuana even has changed so much as it's become more and more exploited, right? It's working to, I mean, they've done things, they've tried to keep it prolonged by cloning and everything else, but cannabis, what the only thing they can do is they just have to go out and try to find a plant that hasn't been molested for centuries or generations, like wild cannabis in South America and Africa or whatever, and then hybrid cross those seeds and hope to God that the plant doesn't become weaker. So many plants are tired of being exploited along the path. But then you got to think about LSD, and you know, there's no point in the LSD process where they're not putting intention into it, even into putting it into an art page. I think there still is that Dr. Emoto kind of quality, no matter what, because of the way things are formed into material, that there's going to be some both energetic pattern, but also a material mosaic symmetry, a material symmetry. And you see the intention in the symmetry, whether it be, you know, love or hate or whatever. I think you got to be very careful if your LSD's got some weird TV show picture on your tab. Probably you probably shouldn't take it, you know. I wonder also, we've got to look at some of this news, but I can't stand the news. What do you think about the Netherlander farming protests and all the food fires around the world? I think that's a pretty decent one. Have you heard about that?
I haven't really. I've been kind of under the radar here the last
Let me
little bit, so
let me
I'm not
pull it
really
up because
familiar.
I think a lot of people aren't being told about this, to be honest. So
I just saw a short video that supposedly even the police there were shooting at the tractors or something. Just happened today. So
my God,
that's part of the protests. Yeah.
Fire rips through farm. Fire. Arnold's and Leeds Maidstone. I've seen pictures of maps showing just like dozens and dozens. Chicken farm burned. Kenosha County mushroom farm destroyed. Just farms are being taken out all across the U.S. But then there was this one in the Netherlands. Netherlands farmers protests. Let me see. Dutch police. Yeah, that was the one. Dutch police shoot at tractor. Dutch police shoot a tractor. Did you ever think you were going to read that?
No.
Like, of all things that the Dutch are known for, I mean, what? Like, what is their deal? And then, of course, misleading video claims Dutch farmers attacked under police. Well, that just tells you it's true. I mean, that's how you know it really happened that way. But that's just nuts. So what are they trying to do? What do you think is the deal? Are they destroying the farms on purpose? Or is this just like a weird coincidence that all the farms are burning across the world?
Are you familiar with Agenda 21?
Yeah, right. So what do you?
You know, if you go into Agenda 21, man, I found out about that years and years ago, and I thought it was just crazy when I first read it because it seemed so outlandish. But I've been watching it materialize over the last few years, and part of the mindset in the Agenda 21 thing is to seize the resources of the country, the main land, government takeover of all the farmland, to get rid of the individual farmers, take that land, move people from the center of the country into urban settings where they can be managed more. And it's pretty much it's watching it happen even as we speak. They're trying to destroy the independent farmers and the people that actually produce food and make that something that the government then takes over
But aren't these the same people that are, Georgia Guidestones? Are they trying? So isn't Agenda 21 kind of? Are they trying to do this because
No,
they think
the
it's
Agenda 21 was a UN thing.
Mm.
That was a whole UN thing. That had nothing to do with the Rosicrucians.
Are you sure
at
it had
all.
nothing to do?
No, absolutely not. I mean, dude, Raphael, you could say that about every single sentence. Are you sure
Well,
that's the right
good.
way?
You could, you could
So,
do that. I wonder though, because the idea of the Georgia Guidestones to create that perfect world. I mean, maybe they're saying it's all tied together.
I don't think the Georgia things are even talking about. I think that's a misnomer. I think that people think those Georgia Guidestones are about what needs to happen to the population now to achieve those things. But it's not. It's what happens to the population after we fuck ourselves up and kill almost everybody. Two different things.
But I mean, like, if we destroy all of our farms, doesn't that help that along? I mean, sometimes I feel like there's this confirmational bias.
I don't think they're destroying the farms. I think they're taking the farmers out of it, and then we'll take that land. They're not destroying the farms. They're not destroying the ability to make the food. They're destroying the ability for individuals to be able to produce food. And it's not centralized and controlled and The
other side I've heard, and it's kind of similar to that actually, is like by destroying the local farms, then they're gonna have these larger farms that will be there for when we isolate. If we're starting to have these blockades with Russia, for instance, or Eurasia, that the American farms that were destroyed will then elevate the cost of things locally, and they'll be able to start over again. Plus, they'll have the insurance costs of these insured farms burning down to say, okay, well, just restart everything in the meantime, and everyone else will just become accustomed to higher prices, etc. And Klaus Schwab's whole thing is you'll have nothing and you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Yeah.
So
wow,
it's this really quick progression into take the last of everyone's money, because now that we own everything, then
exactly.
I think
So I can only
do
assume
what
that,
you're told.
of course, I can only assume it's similar in the US. Within the European Union, one of the biggest budget parts they have is always agricultural subsidies. And this they have used for the past decades to shape the farms into these mega farms and so on. And to me, if this is true that all these farms are burning, it's another push for food scarcity, Mr. Windows buying up even more farmland and so on. And, maybe I'm hopelessly optimistic or insane or something. I'm 100% sure they will try everything they can, whatever remnant or of this ideology or power remains, but I'm also perfectly certain they will ultimately fail. And also, I kind of ask, even with the crisis now the past 2 years, how many people started wondering about moving to the countryside and so on, started prepping in whatever way and so on. So they are pushing, and even now, I mean, with the gas in Europe, supposedly by next week or whatever, they turn it down 40% or something, and all the governments are going insane in Europe. And I have to wonder, because when they started with this, I was like, obviously it's completely insane. In Austria, for example, 80% dependence on Russian oil, and they talk about, just take a shorter bath and BS like that. And I am actually surprised that it only took a few months for them to kind of already realize that these sanctions and so on is not really the way to go. And I'm just not 100% sure to what extent many of the things happening now are more like a show, like to reveal a play and to reveal ideologies, like with the Guidestones you mentioned.
It's no coincidence that the internet exists now.
Threat, I can't assess it completely, and everyone should, to the degree they can, prepare, know a farmer, and all of these things, and not submit to this stuff.
They got everyone to not want to be around farmlands for the last 100 years, and now the internet has linked up all the farmlands, and you don't need to live in the city. So it's all right now.
So I'm not exactly sure how it will play out eventually. So yeah.
Here, I need 1 second. I'm going to push this button. Guys, I'm sorry. I think that it's called the insert ad button. So you guys have about 30 seconds. Raph, you take over.
Oh, what's the insert ad button? There is no ad. Gotta come up with something. Yeah, I don't know, Brian, anything you'd like to mention more about this whole thing? Or do you feel like ultimately, even though there's these threat scenarios, do you feel like this will succeed? Because somehow I feel like I'm 100% confident it will not, and only be like a backlash to people having them really realize we need to be more sustainable, more independent, more connected, more friendly to each other. This is kind of what I'm getting. But
I think that just because somebody, you have to look at the agenda that's been being played out over decades and how all of this has been set up over a lengthy period of time. But at the same time, you look at it faltering in many different directions. And I don't think anything's written in stone.
Not anymore, ever since they blew up, right?
They blew them up, yeah. So it's like,
isn't that interesting, right? I mean, only symbolically, the fact
That's
that
so
they
funny.
blow up. Even though I agree, war, destruction, or whatever is maybe not the best way to do it, but only symbolically, it doesn't really give me the signal of like, oh my God, this is gonna succeed. It's more like the signal, all these nice plans of having a managed population are more blowing up in their faces, with all the protests, all the awakenings and all of that, people self-organizing, people realizing they don't need as much government and so on. So I really more see it like they're showing their hand. It's very obvious. It looks very threatening, but at the same time, it seems to me almost more like the control is slipping away, which is also why there's so much censorship and propaganda happening right now.
Well, yeah, the panic is setting in.
Yeah, but who's panicked now,
And the crazy part about it is instead of like evolving and manipulating and changing the message, it just keeps getting doubled and tripled and like, let's just keep saying it over and over. Like, wow, man, you guys. Okay.
Well, but I find it interesting, Blahr, because you were saying it was maybe there's a difference between some of these teams, which is a very Robert Anton Wilson thing to say, that the Illuminati is made up of people that are fighting each other in some circumstances while working together, trying to take over the world. So I wonder then, is it more chickens without heads? Are they that confused? You've got a group that thinks the world needs to have 250,000, half a billion people. You another group of people that think they need to have no people at all and just have the elite immortal. I mean, what's going on? Like, who are the teams?
Well, I can't really answer that because I disagree with the original premise to begin with. I don't think that the Georgia Guidestones are what we need to do to people, and that whole mindset of these are like saying everyone needs to be eliminated. We need to get the population down. That's not what they were about at all. So really responding to that is kind of okay, because the information that I've been interested in those since I lived in Atlanta many decades ago. And that's been a source of interest for me for a long time. And I happened to run into some people while I lived in Atlanta that I think had some pretty good information about that, and that it was really a Rosicrucian thing. There was kind of like a Rosicrucian kind of constructed thing in response to what needs to happen after we blow ourselves up. That the Georgia Guidestones are not the thing that's supposed to like take people out and we're supposed to act on that and alleviate people. It's like, here's what you need to kind of think of after we've already screwed it up and everybody's gone. And here's what to do with what's left, man.
So this is like the post-reset script for
exactly.
The next
so I think if you're operating under the premise that they're now things promoting actions that need to be taken to things now to achieve those things, as opposed to those are things that are like rules for the people that are left. I think they're two different mindsets. And I happen to subscribe to it's for people that are left.
So then one related question to this, we briefly spoke about it yesterday, Brian. I'm sure, Andreas, you know about it as well. I think it's always around this time, this like serious gate stuff or whatever it means, like this alignment. So it's also kind of curious that this is just happening during these days, I think.
Well, and we've been in a massive, like...
Probably they blew it up themselves.
Every planet has been, like, aligned throughout pretty much the whole, like, month of June. And
yeah, those hexagons are all just polarized. It's
been
great.
Really, really crazy. Yes, exactly.
We got a question. Let me see. I can't figure out why, but it's not letting me pull it up, so I'm just gonna read it. Question. Thank you. Oh no, it's not a question. It's just it's a fun fact. Question the answers. Guidestones were erected on 322. No biggie. Okay. 322. What are we saying? March
Skull and
22nd.
Bones, no?
Yeah.
Skull and
Oh,
Bones,
okay.
no?
Fair enough.
No?
That works. Yeah.
Right?
That's true. 322 is a Skull and Bones number. But is there also a March 22nd holy day from like the ancient
Almost
times?
seems like it's like a week after the IDs of March popularized. It could also be
That's-
something relevant.
That's the equinox.
Ooh, the
spring
Battle of
equinox.
Yashima. Not to be confused with the Battle of Yoshima and the Pink Robots, but Battle of Yashima happened in 1185 on March 22nd. And yeah, Pilgrims of Plymouth Colony signed a peace treaty also that day, which is interesting. I think that's probably what they wanted to tie it to also, is the Pilgrims Peace Treaty. You know, how can we all live together, or kind of thing. Emerald Buddha's moved. I like looking through the synchronicities of days, because I feel like they like to say, oh yeah, this happened. Oh, you know what was a good one? You guys ever watch Big Lebowski?
No.
No. I only heard it's interesting.
That's hilarious. I would have imagined of all people, you would have seen the big. It's a very important movie. It's like a film noir, but instead of it's the anti-male film noir. All the men are emasculated. He's lost his wife. He's still going to his wife's synagogue, even though he's not even Jewish. And the Lebowski character, there's a lot to this movie. But what I was going to bring up, besides the nihilists, because they have to fight the nihilists, also this happened during the Gulf War, and they have to deal with Jesus, and so they're the Muslims. There's a whole thing there about them being the Afghanis and everything. But the movie starts with the check. He comes in, he writes a check for 61 cents, right? And you're like, whatever, 61 cents. That's ridiculous. Why would you write a check for Ralph's for 61 cents? But then you see when the check was written in 1991 in Venice Beach, California on September 11th, 1991. And so it's all taking place on September 11th. It's a big reveal to what's about to happen in the world. Very David Plate synchronicity. But you look through all of these other things, and you've got a lot of these treaties are signed, it looks like. The Arab League is founded, for instance. NASA's Columbia is launched. I mean, there's a lot of things they like to use these days. Oh, 2021, 10 people mass shooting Boulder, Colorado as well. Interesting. I don't know. Synchronicities, man, abound. What about the Boris ministry resignations today? I mean, so today there was also Boris Johnson in England received more resignations in one day than any prime minister in British history. All kinds of people are just getting out, resigning. I don't know. What do you think? Any thoughts?
Well, generally one would say this, rats leaving the sinking ship. What's interesting, I just heard today, which was kind of unfortunate. I'll mention it in a somewhat censored way, but it's official. The health minister of Austria apparently is reported as saying now that if there has been any issues with the recent treatments, of course it's not on them, but they want to, shove the responsibility back to the doctors. And this could be something along those lines. I honestly don't really believe that politicians are ultimately liable if they have the right connections, but maybe they're scared, or it could also be planned. The whole issue, of course, always with what's happening now to consider is the destabilization of the nation states, or the complete, wrecking of them ethically, morally, spiritually, publicly, to then allow some other things to come in. But honestly, I don't yet see any other supranational structure on the horizon. At least, I don't see it. That could take that over when trust in, let's say, national governments potentially is completely lost on purpose, right? So can be part of that strategy too.
Yeah.
RVNS beats Revenez beats says Bank of England is a time machine. Any thoughts when he says that?
Who is that? Who says that?
Yeah, say that again, please.
I'm just reading the comments on YouTube, and it says Revenez Beat says Bank of England is a time machine. I don't know. What do you think that means? Like, I imagine it's a metaphysical statement.
Yeah, no, it's a profit thing.
What's that guy's name? George Peabody? Peabody. You guys know George?
Now that you mentioned this, maybe look up immediately, actually, you can. Michelle Gibson, you know her, right? Or I mentioned her to you at some point. Michelle Gibson. She did a great Gibson and Peabody. she did a great video on philanthropy and Peabody, and that not everything is as it seems as always. Very interesting research.
Oh, there we go.
Yes,
We'll have to
Very
check this
interesting.
out. I'll
Yeah.
pull up a thing on this. This looks great. Yep. So Peabody's interesting because
There
of
you
course,
go. Just look at
Yeah.
the screen.
Right.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So
that gives you an idea. Well, I'll definitely have to watch this. 12K views. That looks pretty important. Peabody's interesting because he was an American and he ended up taking over the Bank of England with the Rothschilds through JP Morgan. And he took Junius Spencer Morgan as partner in 1854. When JP Morgan finally died, he owned less than 9 or 11% of his own company because of all the money that was into these German financiers. But he was born in Ohio or Massachusetts or what? Where is he born? He's born in Massachusetts, and his money came from a lot of things that were on the dark side, or whatever that means. Because what was legal and what was illegal, and how would you deal with that? But what's crazy is he's buried in front of the Bank of England. Where's that at? Yeah, coat of arms of the Peabodys. Sun symbols, wheat, and the fasces with the eagle. And there's a statue of him in front of the Bank of England. So it's pretty interesting to me that in front of the Bank of England is this American guy. And you've heard maybe of the Peabody Institute or the Peabody
yes. And
scholarships.
also wheat, of course, is on all of those communist emblems, right? And as you may also know, in the 1850s, I may have mentioned this before, they changed the wheat processing to take out the germ. So all the nutrients were taken out. Maybe we talked about this before. This is interesting. And also, yeah, I mean, this is the last, when I was in the US actually, and I saw these kind of toast breads, and after like 2 weeks, they were like already sliced and they were still like wobbly. And I looked at the backside, I was like, oh my God, like, what is this? What chemical concoction is this, that this can, not for
that and the fact that Americans microwave their water for tea if they ever have it is terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, some people here also do that, but the other thing
no, they don't. Don't tell me that Europeans do that. You have hot water heaters.
Some unfortunately do.
Kind of Homer Simpson. That's horrible.
Yeah, well, American colonialist, subversion ideology, however you call it, imperialist, cultural imperialism. But the other thing I want to mention is that supposedly wheat also is a perfect grain or substance to actually have a centralized and controlled and easily accountable food system. So this may also be why grain was pushed so much, because apparently it's easier to use it to manage a population or manage the food supply, centrally speaking.
Well, have you guys heard of the Great Flour Mill explosion, the Great Mill disaster in Minneapolis? There's always been one in one city or another, but let's see if I can pull up a big enough picture. Here's a picture of a flour mill exploding because of the gluten, which has nitroglycerin in it, essentially. Yeah. So what they can do is...
What year was this?
1889 or 1878, but there's a bunch of these that have happened. And
okay, then just let me ask, how is it possible at that time that just exactly in that moment...
Oh, no, this is you can tell it's a recreation. See, there's drawing into this photo. They took an actual photo of the place, and then they doctored it, which is also interesting because it tells you
common technique, no?
they could Photoshop back in the 1890s.
Exactly. Here we go. Vanilla Sky, right?
There's what was that movie? Photographing fairies. I just watched this horrible movie. It was amazing. Photographing Fairies, 1997. People live, people die. It's got drugs. I think Jim needs to see it, but it's basically
just one sentence. At least one friend that showed me a picture that, in this case, his wife made of on a cell phone, and maybe other people did that too, which literally looks like a small fairy. Like there's many. Maybe Brian, you've seen stuff like this too. Like this seems to be really a thing.
Yeah.
Well, the story of this movie is a dude in the 1800s who does photography doctoring. Actually, I think it's 1910 probably. But what he's doing is during the war periods, before the end of World War I, he's doctoring photos for families whose mother and father have lost their soldier son. So he'll have a friend stand there, then he'll put a cut of the best photo they've got's face in there and make it have one last photo with them. So he's an expert in photography doctoring in the early 20th century. And that guy ends up saying he can't find a way that they could have faked these photos of fairies, right? And it's an interesting story. At least the movie's a little weird, but I think
I
there's
saw it. It's actually kind of good. I liked it.
yeah, I liked it. I liked it too. I mean, I know I can't tell everyone what they'll like, but I thought it was interesting. There's also a movie that came out the same year that is about little girls with fairies and a dad and everything else.
Yeah, I
But
saw that too.
yeah, but that one's more for kids. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
funny that they competed with each other and they designed it so you could mix them up and your family be like, whoops, this one has boobs, you know. What about Lindsey Graham? Will not comply with subpoena in Georgia election probe. Kind of interesting that this is happening during the explosion of the Georgia Guidestones. Is there some sort of connection? I'd love to believe it. I don't know. What do you think is going on with this election probe? They say he will not comply. Let me see if I can turn off. What's this button to turn off? There's like advanced controls, block scripts. There we go. Okay.
So
That's how
just to
you get rid of
summarize
that.
for Europeans, this is basically about the county that is the most contended in terms of election results and most relevant in Georgia, right?
Right,
This is
exactly.
Georgia?
Yeah. And so let's see, Fulton County, Georgia grand jury investigation into former President Donald Trump's push to overturn Joe Biden's election. State of the Independent, Bart Daniel, Matt Austin said Fulton County investigators have told them that Mr. Graham is simply a witness and neither a subject nor target of the investigation, but dismissed the investigation being overseen by Fulton County DA Fannie Willis as all politics. So, I mean, I don't know, the election thing, it seems like there was that documentary, what was it, 1,000 Mules? 2,000 Mules. I don't know if you guys saw that one. What do you think about all that?
Well, I think the interesting question would be, how far back does it go on both or all sides that elections are being engineered, let's say? In my estimate, it would be ever since the first election was ever held anywhere, people have been attempting to mess with it.
Absolutely.
I saw this particular documentary and some others, and I'm not sure if it's allowed to say, put the right words together, but I think the evidence is quite overwhelming, simply put, that too much is very wrong. But I think most people also in Europe don't believe it, because here also you have the general, liberal, whatever perspective that there's nothing to see here,
Yeah,
which is
right.
ridiculous if you look at actual whatever.
Pay
There's
no
still
attention to
evidence,
that
right?
man behind the curtain.
But the interesting thing, or what we hope actually, one thing that's interesting, usually, stuff happens in America and later it happens in Europe. Just like with whatever, weed legalization, first happens in America, now Germany starts talking a bit, all of that. But also, if we finally start to properly question or audit or whatever elections and really make sure, even if people believe in it, which I don't really do, but if you want to play that game, to play it properly, then ultimately, from what I heard, we will even realize that even in the small state of Austria, we also have Dominion election machines, supposedly in like the Ministry of Industry or something. It's somehow connected as well. And also here we had interesting election results, let's say 4 years ago, about 4 years, when there was an evil right-wing candidate against Green Party candidate that's most likely a Freemason and who knows what else. And they basically had to redo the counts. They also at some point said, we had these, like, how do you call it? If you send in by mail, your mail voting, right?
Right.
Then they said the glue was wrong. They used the wrong glue, so they had to redo it. And the only thing I can say here is finally it was only 26,000 votes apart and the Green Party candidate won. But there was at least one analysis, which I don't think is on YouTube even anymore, where a guy was comparing it with like a simple Excel sheet, right? Comparing the results and just having, on one side you have the votes that were actually given at the place, like the magistrate, or however you call it in the US, the county office, right? Where people actually arrived and put it. And then you had the mail votes. And it was almost, if I remember correctly, like a formula that basically from whatever they had in the real one, 20% more was shifted towards the Green candidate with the mail-in votes. And of course, you have the good meme, at least here, where they always say, of course, we know that liberal parties and Green parties, they always get more mailing votes, which of course makes me kind of suspicious from the very start, ever since they started building that meme, if this has not been a very convenient way ever since they introduced it anywhere to just feed or stuff, however you call it, the ballots. And at least in this example with the Austrian presidential election, if I would have to bet, I would bet that there was manipulation happening, so yeah.
I mean, there's your internationalist perspective right there. So, I mean, that's that's what it's looking like from outside the box. I think it's also interesting, though, that it's close enough that there'd be this conversation, and they have to admit it, that at least It's not like this overwhelming majority, and that's a big thing in America. They're saying, oh well, we're divided because there really is almost half of us that are just opposite of us. They're not us, they're them, and it's a weird ideology that they put into the American limelight. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be more like, we don't trust the elite.
Exactly. Which
the
should
left-
be the attitude, right?
The left don't trust the fat cats. The right don't trust the intellectual scholastics. We got each other's back.
Exactly.
Let's
That'd
both
be a good
agree
balance,
to. Yeah, what happened? I don't know. It's kind of sad. So they've turned us against each other, and we used to be, it used to be that we were like back to back with a gun. Like, we'll shoot this way, you shoot that way. We're dealing with it. I mean, what happened to America? I don't know. And then how's that affecting the rest of the world? I worry. Man.
Social media, dude.
Dude,
I mean,
social media.
If you think about it, like our parents' generation, the World War II guys, everybody in the whole country like rallied around that. It was like go towards it, but everybody was like country first. And we're gonna do this together, exactly like what you were just saying. And now, like with social media, you watch that as it goes and goes and goes, and it's the faction and fracturing of special interest groups that have their own concerns above anything else. So it's not a collective us anymore. It's us and them, or you and me, and it's like this whole competition thing instead of a collective pulling in the same direction. Which is, I think, kind of just the nature of what's happened with the ability for so much to be out, and the way people are fractured and kind of like tribed. I don't think it's healthy at all.
Man, and then so the other thing was the July 4th shooter in the United States in Chicago, and
2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Really?
And right, so this guy, Lake County judge on Wednesday, ordered Robert E. Bobby Cremo III, accused of carrying out the rooftop massacre at Highland Park's Independence Day Parade, held without bond, 7 counts of first-degree murder. Killed 7 people, wounded 21. Super tragic, like horrible situation. But what they've, and this kid's got rap music online and videos you can find, and he's the social media would plan this thing. But when you look into, let me do this, he was wearing a dress, right? So they say parade shooting was planned, suspect disguised as woman, right? And he's got things saying he was transgender or non-genderized or whatever. So I wonder, is there kind of this other thing here saying that transgenders can't be shooters, therefore because he's a shooter he can't be trans? Like, what is going on that he can't just be who he is now that he's a shooter? Like, right. Why are we taking that identity away from them?
That
I don't
sounds
know.
interesting, but just as you mentioned this, may I read one paragraph from 1991's Behold the Pale Horse, William Cooper,
please God do. Yes.
Okay, so here it says the government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients in a process called Orion is the hunter, the CIA inculcated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment. Yeah.
Man, well, in a not quite rebuttal, but maybe a seconding of your remark, the AP says bricks stored on DC streets for pre-scheduled construction. That's the only reason they had all these random bricks on the streets before these riots and protests.
Sure.
But they couldn't point to what the construction was for.
Oh, too bad.
We were building something. I'm not sure.
Oh, we're building a revolution. Man, it's pretty crazy.
Brick.
Do you want to do also poll a second? Do you want to poll like a third, a finale card? Do you think? Something like-
Sure, absolutely. Almost there.
Freemason is trending on Twitter now. Oh, and Bobcat gives us a super chat. Thanks, Bobcat. Says Raphael just explained Operation Helter Skelter. There we go.
I don't even know what that is, but here we go with the card. I'll look it up. Sun.
The sun.
Perfect. Wow.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
also, it's the 19. It's the 19. It's the
It is,
AI.
right?
It's the AI.
So the sun is about complete and total success, and it's about the rays of that filtering out in all directions and filling up the universe and lives with goodness and energy and moving forward in a really good direction.
That's beautiful. I see. I don't know how I can't help but notice that as you said that Freemason just started trending on Twitter, and they've got their their sun crowned. Yeah, following today's Hans Mason AGM at Freemasons Hall, head of the province, are led by the sword bearers. Apparently, it's like pretty big right now. I don't know. It's like I just took to the side what's happening, and Freemason was trending. I guess it's a big United Grand Lodge day right now. It's birthday wishes to HRH Prince Michael of Kent. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. Kind of interesting. But his hand's right over the sun compass, which is kind of funny.
Yes, exactly.
It's hiding the sun, so it's kind of funny. I don't know. That's pretty good. Well, what is there anything else that you guys have been thinking about? Like, what else has been going on in your lives, man? I covered the news, but like, who are we? You know,
Who are we? That's something to be rediscovered every day, right?
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Man.
I just it's been a crazy ride the last 6 months or so. I pretty much like the person I was died in every way that was possible except physically. And now I've been like reconstructing a new me, which is pretty fun, actually.
What do you think the future? What are we supposed to do? Like, what are we gonna do to like make the world a better place? And how are we making ourselves powerful enough to do that?
Well, I think that all of it starts with us. And that so much focus has been outside of us on other people and what other people are doing, that like the focus needs to be on your own energy and the frequency and vibration of the quality of the energy you're putting out into the world. And that is the thing that actually will make change, because as people like change their frequency and they're just taking care of their own sphere in a really great way, and they're spewing out this energy that's about success and love and connection and people working out and like it working in a really great way, that then those connections start growing and happening and spreading to other people. And I'm tired of everybody telling you what you need to do. You need to do this. Here's the way it is. Here's blah, blah, here's truth. Well, man, you discover that yourself by going inside and figuring out what that is. Not because somebody told you that, but because you felt it and experienced it and lived through it. So it's not just bullshit information anymore. It's been transmuted into actual wisdom based on experience and knowledge, So anyway, I hope that answered that.
And someone also just sent us a super chat. Questions. The answer says, now the footage is out of the explosion at the Guidestones. Well, yeah, if you have a link, send me that. I'd love to see it. Some people are saying it's lightning and that it wasn't an attack by mankind, but God.
That's some pretty intense lightning.
That's a lot. That's a lot to process. Raph, what do you think? I mean, you're one to distrust and to question and to look into things yourself. What do you think we got to do?
Actually, I agree with what Brian said. It's all about regaining our access to our, let's say, internal authority. For many individuals, this actually is a gut feeling where there may be, necessary to dissolve some negative belief systems to really get into contact with that. Some people call it their higher self. Like I said, some just gut feeling. In human design, it's also explained about strategy and authority. And there's all kinds of systems and pathways to that. Some people can just start with meditation or something. It's strange when you talk about it and you never experience it. Like, what is this inner voice and what is all of that? But if you allow yourself to detach a little bit from the world, just like Brian said, it's much easier to feel that, and also to feel your own excitement. Like, what do you, dear listener, really like
to go
do?
chasing that, and to go
Exactly.
chasing that, right?
Go after that, because also this means you're supported by reality. You can only prove this to yourself, but these high energy states, we can feel them. It's very simple. I think life is very, very simple if we just allow ourselves to be honest in feeling that energy, act accordingly, and then there ultimately is nothing much to be afraid of. And we are certainly not fueling somebody else's dream or dystopic nightmare vision or cyberpunk corporatist something if we actually listen to ourselves and act to what we truly believe is the right course of action, or we really feel is good for our bodies and is in accordance with our nature, or with the nature we perceive, or with our brethren. And I think this
Pick
can be developed
unrelated
by
of the
everybody.
Cern collider.
Oh, this is the
exploding.
last thing I wanted to ask about, but I just saw yesterday you had it, but now this is exploding too. What's happening?
That
Oh,
was
no,
my
okay,
question.
not exploding yet.
Not
Okay.
exploding. Calm down.
Well, whatever. By
So
now.
optimistic. No, but I mean, so it seems kind of related to what you're saying, though, because people are talking. Bless you. Yeah, people are talking about mandala effects and reality shifts. All this ideas of non-causality. This is right before the Georgia Guidestones explodes. What's going on? What do you think's going on with the Cern? Would you have any thoughts on Cern, man? Like, what's up with this?
Cern's a pretty amazing thing. What a crazy tool. Everybody's like, oh man, it's gonna make a black hole and kill us. I just, there's always a crisis. I think Cern is a tool to find some just crazy. Well, I mean, that's how they got to the Higgs boson particle. There's all kinds of things.
They found the pentacork just now because of it. Yeah, there's all kinds of they're breaking things apart. Do you think it's affecting reality in a more metaphysical way, though? Like, is it actually changing the past? You don't think so?
It does if we believe that it does. And this is always the great issue. Just recently, I saw some report with short videos. Apparently, the sky is looking really strange in some places. Also, this kind of fire hole opened up in a sea somewhere. I'm sure you had heard, Xirtus, some fire. And then people are saying, oh, it's because of Cern. But the other thing I was thinking about right that moment, because right now we have this Sirius gate activation, whatever this is. I can't even tell what this would mean. But what I just was thinking about is we always have to distinguish between, correlation and causation. And I was thinking back just to these old stories of the witch or something in the village who's saying, oh, don't burn me at the stake or whatever, because, the moon will get dark in this and this time and so on, and this will happen. So it could very well be that also Cern is just managing their PR in a certain way, because maybe they have their Jesuit astrologers in the back or whatever. They know some strange stuff is about to happen now. And then they just say, oh, now we activate it. So people start believing even more that they are causing it, even though potentially they can't do which I'm, somewhat more prone to believe almost. So it's always important to distinguish that. And the other interesting idea I heard recently about Cern is that even if there would be a real danger with it, and this agenda is still rolling on full steam, if they would do it, then they would most likely give a PR message where nothing happens, and then in the background do their actual stuff, if this was their plan and is actually working out, which I don't really believe, but okay, so.
Man, I mean, I do wonder. So people keep talking about a reset and everything else. Do you feel like they're going to actually successfully just destroy what exists now, and it'll be the end of now and the beginning of tomorrow? Or do you think that it's just a gradual, it's just always now?
It's certainly always now, metaphysically speaking. And aside from that, I just have the strong feeling, and this can just be maybe nothing more than intuition, but this feeling that if there is something like incarnation cycles, or even just these kind of scenarios of an evolutionary potential in a certain species, I feel, and People can call me insane for that. I don't care. But I feel like I experienced this before. I don't know why. And I also know that for many years I felt, even though I didn't know any about all the stuff you're talking about and so on, I was a teenager maybe, but even then already I felt, I don't know what it is exactly, but I feel like this time we're gonna somehow succeed, you know? So, and yeah, so basically I don't think that the Grand Reset, the way the, you know, Economic Forum and whoever is planning it is really gonna work out. I think it's good for everyone, you know.
I think
like
it's already failed.
Well, that's the other thing. And now it can all just be even more PR push, even more insanity, as much as they can do. But maybe even just because they realize they already failed, they're just trying to do as much damage that they still can. So it's always, with the PR stuff, it's so hard, or with the media, because we know it's so tightly controlled. And this would naturally be the last defense point. Even with governments, they say this, right? No matter Germany, Second World War, whatever, we are winning, everything is fine, you know, and next day they're gone. So yeah, propaganda, right?
Oh my God. So, okay. So guys, where can they find more of your stuff? Blahr, where do you have links online or
Private chat, Xirtus, you can post it.
there's a private chat thing?
I just put the links there so you can post it. It's the wizardofodd.com.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
It's not letting me see it. Okay. Wizardofodd.com.
With a Y.
It's
with a
Wizard
Y.
with a Y. Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha. Wizardofodd. Ooh, because if you type it with an I, it takes you to some strip chat stuff. Interesting. Good to know. Let me pull it up here. This is Wizard of Odd Tarot, guys. You can check out more Brian's stuff. Bar's got a great thing going here, and you can buy actually like a sweet deck. Those are some pretty sweet cards. So get up there and also do the sign up if you want to get info. What about you, my dear friend Raph? What about you? You got a site? You got anything?
Yes. Is the other link. You got to
My
enter
links
my last...
aren't showing up for some reason. My StreamYard's acting all havocy.
It's my last name without the accents. .at.
Oh, brutal. Okay, hold on a second. Kamikaze.
Kamikaze. No, KEMENZZY.
That took me forever.
Oh, and just speaking of it, because it's a pretty rare name. It's interesting, you know, everyone can do this, of course. Look up on your national archive or something and just do a search for your family name and see whatever comes up. This can be highly interesting. I, for example, discovered, which also makes me question, you know, Xirtus, when was the last reset and so on. These are documents from 1860, supposedly from the time of the Austrian Caesar Franz Josef. I guess you know about this. And they have these militia lists. And I discovered that both my current name and my mother's maiden name are in the same document. And the guy who has my father's name was like an how you call it, a major, or the last thing before general. And my maiden's name, or someone with maiden's name of my mother, it was the auditor of the same document. And it's kind of also funny because at least on this like major and general aspect, many of the names are pretty famous and known in Austria. Like they are respected, established names. I don't exactly know what secret society you had to be part of to be a, you know, high level officer in that army. All I know now is my family didn't succeed in establishing itself. You know? But yeah, so
they're all like, "This guy's a janissary. We can't let him take over the Christian army."
It was a Hussar regiment, and I think they even fought against Hungary, actually. So I'm not sure how happy I would be about that in retrospect, but I wasn't.
Well, you got to remember Hungary being part of the Ottoman Empire, and so I mean, we got to look at one of these days. We're gonna do a whole thing on Vienna, siege of Vienna by the Ottomans in like 1521,
Yes.
and it's there's a great photo, like painting of it, and Vienna is this giant star fort. And there's all these Ottomans coming in, but it's really convoluted and confusing because what are these borders that are run by these places? And there's all these people there that have been friends for generations.
Also, they have strange flags, from what I heard, like Christians having crescent flags and so on, with stars and so on. And as David, whom I had the pleasure to talk to yesterday night, will be released soon.
Nice.
He's mentioning, of course, that it may be classic satanic reversal. That's what I'm saying now. But he's mentioning it could be the other way around. So what if the siege was actually an attempt to liberate the, let's say, peace-loving population from the expanding insanity of the modern Catholic Church?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, who wouldn't accept that the Ottoman Emperor Mehmed II was Caesar? You know, because he can. So there's a whole, all of our history. It's like so easy to point to the lies because you just show how they were ignoring the Ottoman Empire. Well, I want to show people also. Someone was it? I did. I got another super chat question. The answer says I can't post the link to the Georgia Guidestones. I'm not a wrench, but I have it ready. Go to this website and click on the Tartary Discord entry, and it will take you to the Discord, right? The other thing you can do if you're a normie is go to andreas.me and click on the gay flag, and it will take you to APM. And APM is Advanced Philosophy Memes or Groups Xirtus. And here you can post in Facebook, which is very convenient, if not evil. So it's available to you. So, all right. I really appreciate that you guys came on. We got to do this again sometime. It was a lot of fun. I like what we're doing here.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Xirtus.
Hey, guys. And tell me when Jim's back and we'll do another Team Rabbit Hole. We should do a swap cast. I think that's something that we'll work on. That'll be fun.
We'll do whatever is fine. And as I mentioned, next time I'll bring on a German
Oh yeah, I like the idea.
To that. I think this will be
I like
fun.
the idea of, you know, anytime you want to bring people on, because I love what Team Rabbit Hole is doing. You've got some of the greatest guests in the history of podcasts. These are the people that are the most interesting and that are being they're not on Fox, they're not on CNN, only on Team Rabbit Hole. So it's pretty exciting. Give me some of that loving too, and I'm glad you did. All right, guys, we'll see you soon. Peace out.
Peace.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Totalitarian. Recent Totalitarian. Recent Totalitarian.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Totalitarians. Recent Totalitarian.